title of today's episode is it risky to pursue financial freedom? And I want you to listen to these words. They might seem kind of heavy, but we're going to unpack them later. See if you can tell for now who wrote them and when. You ready? Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. God himself is not secure, having given man dominion over his works. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. Faith alone defends. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. To keep our faces toward change and behave like free spirits in the presence of fate is strength undefeatable. Serious harm, I'm afraid, has been wrought to our generation by fostering the idea that they would live secure in a permanent order of things. It has tended to weaken imagination and self-equipment and unfit them for independent steering of their destinies. How they are staggered by apocalyptic events and wrecked illusions. They have expected stability and find none within themselves or their universe. Before it's too late, they must learn and teach others that only by brave acceptance of change and all-time crisis can they rise to the height of superlative responsibility.
That sounds like somebody would have written that today.
Maybe, right? Yeah. So you might be most familiar with these words. They're often quoted. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. And if you guessed Hellen Keller, you are right. These words were published in 1957 in a collection of writings, but we're not 100% sure when she would have written it, but it was definitely before 1957. So they're at least 60 some years old, but could be 100 years old. We're not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Pun intended. Now, you might know Hellen Keller best as being an advocate for people who were blind, deaf, or both, as she was.
Yeah,
but
she
really,
was both blind and deaf, right?
Right. And when I looked at her life, I actually found that she was so much more than that. She was a symbol of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. And yeah, she wasn't perfect. We might talk about that a little bit too, but that really inspired me. So I wanted to share some of her story with me today. If you're feeling at all like achieving financial freedom for yourself is a task of overwhelming odds that you're facing, then today's episode is made just for you. We're going to come back to Helen, see what we learned from her, and talk so much more about what we've experienced, what we found to work for us. So grab a cup of coffee, and we're going to do our usual intro.
And thanks for joining Wealth Wisdom Financial Podcast, where we believe conventional financial thinking may not get you where you need to go, and that's where you need wealth wisdom. So hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like and share, and maybe put in the comments your favorite Hellen Keller quote. I mean, if you know one, or, like our last episode, use ChatGPT and find one and then put it in the comments.
Okay, so first, let's talk about what is risk. In its most general definition, risk is any situation in which it is possible, but not certain, that some unlikely event will occur. We're going to go to a more philosophical definition of risk, but that's the most general. Now, my dad used to always tell people, every time you get in a car, you're taking a risk. You don't know who you're going to encounter on the road, what they're going to be doing. There is a possibility every time you get in a car of having an accident. It is not certain. There is a possibility.
Your dad was also as old as Hellen Keller.
Right. He drove the Model T. I have to say he wasn't as old. No, not. She was born in the 1800s. He's not that old. So it's not certain, but it's possible, right? Anytime there's a possibility that you're not certain will happen or not, you're in a situation of risk. Now, when you have that most general definition, you realize we all take risks all the time. Like sitting here in this building, I'm taking a risk that, I don't know, a bomb could drop on our building. Very unlikely, but it is possible, right? Or there could be a tornado, right? Like there's all kinds of things that could happen. And our brains learn not to focus on all the risks we face all the time, because we would literally do nothing else because we'd be thinking about all the risks. And we'd be in this constant state of fear, which we're going to come back to that word fear. It's a big relator with risk. Now, There are, though, helpful ways to acknowledge risk, and having an awareness of risk can actually help us do things in a different, maybe even better way than not having an awareness of that risk. We actually take action to avoid the peril, the bad possibility, and steer toward the good possibility. And like when we get in the car and there's snow on the roads, we drive a little more safely because we know the possibility of getting into an accident is greater because of the slippery roads, right? We take action to avoid the negative possibility. We also get car insurance because we know that there's the possibility of getting into an accident, and we have that insurance to make sure that we're financially whole and we don't have some great financial liability if we did get into that accident. So an awareness of risk is part of what it helps us avoid perils, and also buy insurance to help protect from those perils.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think that there's a challenge here in that, again, the title is it risky to pursue financial freedom? And in our world of craziness right now, and people are in fear. And so because they're in fear, they maybe take more risk or they invest in things that maybe they shouldn't have,
or they just hide in a hole.
Yeah,
which is
or
risky.
they hide in a hole, right? But maybe they invest and say, well, I'm going to take on this course that's 100,000 or something like that, because that's going to solve my problem and it's going to make me get to financial freedom quicker, which it brings them backwards instead of forwards. Or again, I mentioned this in the podcast last time, is the Bitcoin thing and the crypto thing, where we were trying to avoid certain things and we ended up taking on risk or taking on certain things because we were trying to get a shortcut.
Right. Or maybe we weren't aware of all the risks. So one of the things that I was a little overwhelmed by, to be honest, when I started my studies with become a certified financial planner, during those studies, I learned about all kinds of financial risks, and they were a little mind-blowing. Can I just rattle them off?
Yeah, rattle them off.
Okay.
I think that's the problem, is there's so much risk and there's a lot of people going after financial freedom and they may not see these risks.
Yeah, and I at one point had an acronym for all these risks to memorize them for the test, but I've forgotten that. I'm just going to rattle them off really quick. Business risk, credit risk, country risk, foreign exchange risk, interest rate risk, political risk, counterparty risk, liquidity risk, model risk, and then there's this whole systematic risk or unsystematic risk. Anytime you are in a market, there is some kind of risk. And then there's also the risk of the particular business or environment or EFT that you're in, or whatever, ETF, et cetera.
Yeah. I feel like I want to just stay in a hole right now.
Right. There's a lot of risk out there, and it's more so than even getting in a car. Choosing to invest money, you're putting money at risk, and there's a lot of risks that money can face. We don't even believe that those risks that I just rattled off are the biggest risk. They're all financial
that was
risks.
a lot of risk.
They're a lot of risks. But I think the biggest risk is the risk to never deal with the lack of certainty, with the fear and anxiety, to never become aware of the risk, to actually just ignore the risk. That's the biggest risk.
Yeah, I mean, that was me just now saying, I'm going to go in the hole.
That's your natural reaction.
Yeah, saying, all right, let me just put my head in the sand. And if I just shrink enough, maybe I won't experience any of that risk.
Well, let's go back to Hellen Keller. So she took the risk to not just stay in she called it her existence as being, quote, at sea in a dense fog. She took the risk to not just stay in her little boat at sea in the dense fog, but to actually reach out and connect with the world. I mean, how many Americans are like that when it comes to financial matters? We're at sea in a dense fog when it comes to money. We don't understand it. I mean, I was there and I thought I wasn't there, right? That's part of our story. We'll probably share that in the next episode. We're able to change a lot about what it looks like to be in that financial sea in a dense fog. Helen couldn't change her ability to see or hear, or lack thereof. And yet she became so handy capable in so many ways. She learned to connect with the world however she could, feeling the beat of the music, actually, she had lots of dogs that she was a pet to, and she actually like touching them.
She was a pet too?
She like they were her pets.
Yeah.
Like, and touching them, that physical touch and connection was so integral to her. She would actually touch people's throat to be able to tell what they're saying, and she could figure out what they were saying by touching their throats, as far as I understand it. Like, that just blows my mind. She ended up becoming the first deaf blind person to get a Bachelor of Arts degree. And she became a world famous speaker and author. And like everyone, she of course had her flaws, some very major ones. So we don't want to ignore that. But this idea that in her life, she was courageous and she had this deep understanding of what risk was, from that quote we read at the beginning. And I think she had that deep understanding because it was almost like she was driving the car of her life without being able to see the road, right? Like, she realized she was always taking risks. Like, she couldn't see just the next step in front of her. She'd depend on others to do that. That's pretty serious. That's a risky life to live. And so I think she has that wisdom to share with us about risk. Now, I was also looking at philosophers and what they say about risk, and I came across this quote of how they would define risk. It's a knowledge about risk is knowledge about lack of knowledge. So Helen, she had a very real awareness of the lack of ability to hear and see, and that helped her know that risk and to move into that risk. What we have, so we don't actually have the awareness, we don't have the knowledge of the lack of knowledge, then we don't know the risks we're taking, or we don't actually take the risk to see the reward. Now, not every risk is a reward. Don't believe that one. Yeah. You got a risk, no risk, no reward. That's an absolute lie. But there are rewards when we risk sometimes. There can also be really bad things when we risk, but the awareness of that risk is needed is a pretty big one. So
I think also knowing, like, when we don't know everything, like that is a knowledge and understanding of, as I'm growing in our wealth and all of the things that we're doing, is learning that we may not know certain things that we want to know, but aren't gonna.
Yeah. That's the whole idea. Knowledge of risk is an awareness of a lack of knowledge. So our biggest risk is that we never acknowledge that we lack knowledge, right? Our biggest risk is that we never face the idea that there are risks. We stay in the fear and the anxiety.
We put our head in the sand.
Right. Now, we might be able to see and hear, but we have tons of blind spots in our financial thinking. We have information that we're not mindful of, right? We're not actually hearing the information, or maybe we're hearing it, but we're not understanding it or increasing our awareness and our intention with it. Now, that's not our fault. We're not judgy here. Like what happened to Helen was the result of a disease. There's plenty of financial disease in the world that makes us have blind spots and not be as fully comprehending what we're hearing. And we're all imperfect too. Like, we do have faults. Me, the first one to admit that. But it's our biggest risk to ignore those blind spots and to ignore where we're hearing but not understanding. By recognizing them, we can find new ways to transform them into handy-capable attributes rather than our handicaps. So with that kind of idea, that's a big idea, that we can transform our blind spots and where we're hearing but not understanding into some of our best ideas, our best potential. Let's go back to the words that Helen shared. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. Don't worry. There's a part that's not quoted very often that I wish was. Here's what she said, or writes. Serious harm, I'm afraid, has been wrought to our generation by fostering the idea that they would live secure in a permanent order of things. It has tended to weaken imagination and self-equipment and unfit them for independent steering of their destinies. What really resonates with me is this idea that fostering a belief that we're secure tends to weaken our imaginations and render us unfit to independently steer toward where we want to go, what we believe is our destiny. I love to flip things into their opposite. So let me take what Helen wrote and flip it into the opposite. It means fostering a belief that we're at risk, that not all is safe and secure. Fostering that belief awakens our imaginations and increases our ability to independently pursue our destinies. What if that's true? What if that means if we want financial freedom, one of the best things we can do is acknowledge that we don't know all the risks, begin to become more aware of them, press into that fear, press into that anxiety, feel those risks, and then allow our imaginations to activate and find the positive within that risk. Find the way we can turn that risk into our superpower.
Yep.
And strengthen our ability to mitigate those risks by that. Like, right? Like, yeah. Who talks this way? Well, apparently Helen did. Hellen Keller, 100 years ago, maybe, was talking this way. And yet we've forgotten these kinds of ideas.
I think it goes to one of the things I think about is that is it risky to pursue financial freedom? Is we have these gurus. We go after certain people and we say, well, everything that they say is perfect and gold, right? And then maybe her guide, right? She needs to understand from herself how to feel and touch, not just have the guide telling her, oh yeah, there's this here or that there. She probably could feel on her own. And one of the things I'm a little concerned about lately is this whole Dave Ramsey thing. He's been saying something about these rules, don't pay attention to the math, that it's crazy, and we just blindly follow that person, right? And that is risky in and of itself. And
what they're really doing is giving a false sense of security.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not inviting people to activate their imaginations and create their own path.
And say, maybe there is some risk here, and maybe it's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows. And how do we build a good, again, foundation, so that way, if things happen, we're still okay.
Yeah. Now, we don't want to stoke fear and anxiety unnecessarily or fuel those kind of feelings of risk. You probably feel enough of them already. Or at least especially if you're not burying your head in the sand, if you actually come up and look around a little bit, you're the meerkat, looking around, you're going to start to feel the anxiety and the fear. What we're inviting you to is this insight from Helen that taking some time to say, okay, here's the risk, here's the fear, here's the anxiety. Let me look it straight in the face, can give you the fresh imagination, and it can build the ability to go through the fear and find some stability within the risk, find the strength to stand. Now, I've been reading this book. I didn't bring it with me. I almost did. It's called How to Stay Standing by Allie Patterson. And she has a chapter all about risk. And it's about when kind of hearing the voice of God, hearing the word of God, and taking the risk to actually try it. That is actually like a really great parallel to having this like vision of financial freedom, feeling like there's a part of your destiny, a part of your purpose on earth that you want to fulfill, and yet feeling like it's a financial risk to take it.
Yeah.
That I'm going to use my own language for it and read her book. It's great.
What's the name of the book?
The book is called How to Stay Standing. Allie Patterson. We'll put a link down. We don't get any commissions or fees with that link. But the idea, like, we all have these surveys where we find out, are we risk averse? Are we conservative? Are we a risk taker? And those questionnaires are asked a lot. Her thing that she posits in this book is that we could have that kind of natural personality, like that we're risk averse with our money. But learning to take risks, learning to face them and find that imagination and that strength within that is actually a skill that we can build. Kind of like Helen Keller, she is blind and deaf. She could retreat into that, or she could expand and do things like physically touch people's throats to hear what they're saying. That's risky, right? Like to take that chance and believe that she could build that skill and ability. That was a risk she had to take. She had this great strength to take risk. And I see that in Allie too, as I read her book and as I hear her stories. She's one of the pastors at the church we go to. I see that she expands her ability to take risk, to pursue good things for other people, to pursue good things for herself, for her family. Like that's a different way of risk being the knowledge of the lack of knowledge, and risk being, the possibility that things are not going to go according to plan or how you want them to go, that we can actually grow in our ability to seek out that adventure.
Yeah, I think that's more powerful, is the adventure or the path, not just risk to consume.
So doesn't mean we want you to go buy a whole bunch of cryptocurrency or stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You can take risk in real estate. You can take risk in starting a business. There's so many different ways to take risk. We're not saying go take a bunch of risk. We're saying to increase your awareness of the risk you're taking and to find ways to mitigate that, to use your imagination and develop more strength and discipline so that you're actually taking less risk as you face the risks, which is weird. And we've seen that to be true in our own lives. We're not just sharing this as like Helen and Allie. We're sharing this as like us. This is true for us, what we've seen when we've taken small risks. It's helped us build that muscle to take a bigger risk. In the next episode, we're actually going to talk a little bit about how we've built some security that's now leading us to take some more risks, right? Having a little bit more safety and security that way. But we also like acknowledging that we don't know something. We did that about 10 years ago, and it's totally transformed our life to be like, oh, we actually aren't as smart as we thought we were. That was a huge thing. We're going to tell that story next time. Yeah.
I mean, I am. I'm still smart.
No, we acknowledged we weren't as smart as we thought we were. We acknowledged the future was uncertain, and we were ready to find and imagine a better path, a different path to financial freedom for us. We're going to share that story, but that's what we're inviting you to do. To take inspired action, imaginative action that builds your self-confidence, your ability to act in the future, rather than just leaning on truisms and, patterns that other people have done, but to face it and, bring it together and figure out what it looks like for you.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest risks you did last year or this year was write this book, right? So we are putting this out there, right? 5 Smooth Stones. And it's a book that we wrote about our story and our, how we've used money and built it to build a good foundation for ourselves and for others.
Yeah.
And so that was risky though, right?
It was a risk to actually spend the time to create this, pay for it to be printed and shipped to us, and now share with the world. People might hate it, but there's one of the things that I share in here is about the power of imagination. It's actually at the very beginning, page 15 and 16, I have this quote from Albert Einstein. Knowledge is powerful, but imagination encircles the world. I came across that quote, 15 years ago, maybe more. And it's definitely transformed how I've approached business, life, and especially money, that I can learn a lot more, but I can also imagine different possibilities. And what this book ultimately helps you do is imagine, face the risk, look at the fears, think through the anxieties, and imagine what you could do differently, and then put it into action. If I were to give somebody that summary, this helps you take inspired action, imaginative action, not just follow the cookie cutter approaches.
Yep. So if you want that, go to wealthwisdomfp.com/shop, wealthwisdomfp.com/shop, and get that book. You will not find it on Amazon. You will not find it anywhere else except for wealthwisdomfp.com/shop.
And pro tip, you'll find on that page, if you look closely, a form to fill out to join our VIP list and get a 10% coupon code. So be sure you fill that out and save 10%. We want to get this into as many hands as possible, especially this month and into January. That coupon code will not always be there, so be sure you get it, get your copy, and we'll have some awesome stuff to share with you by way of thank you and to help you get into this and make it real in your life.
And if you're watching this video a couple years later, still go wealthwisdomfp.com/shop and get a copy of the book or whatever else we have out on there.
Yeah. Now we're going to wrap up for today. Next week, we're going to talk about our own journey toward financial freedom and what that's looked like over the past 10-ish years, and really recap that, because we did some amazing things 10 years ago that we're celebrating, and we look forward to sharing them with you. So be sure to hit subscribe. Don't miss that episode, and live long and profit.
The topics presented in this podcast are for general information only and not for the purpose of providing legal, accounting, or investment advice. On such matters, please consult a professional who knows your specific situation and can help you take the right risks for you.